welcome back. This is the Poet is a Human with the Philosopher Dunamis on this week's episode number 52, Fight for Longevity. Please be sure to hit that like button on your way in, and if you like us, consider subscribing to keep up with our episodes on YouTube and give us a follow on X.
And Fightcast is here to empower individuals to live healthier, master finances, pursue dreams, and inspire others through self awareness and global impact. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and not financial advice. Well, this is the 1 year anniversary episode. Is he human? How you feeling, brother?
1 year. 1 year. I feel like, wow, that's dope.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving too. We're on that Thanksgiving weekend, so it's there's a lot, man. There's a lot to be thankful for.
Oh, yeah. I'm thankful I found the ashwagandha. It's a little insider, guys.
Yeah.
But if you know, you know. Yeah. Thankful I found the ashwagandha just in time, man. Just in the nick of time. It was like that last bit of the superhero movie, and the villain's just about to get one over on you, and then you just get that reach over, and you're like Shazam. So
Yeah.
no, but all jokes aside, no, man, this is dope, and I think week after week, just some of the mental preparation that we put in to this, even if we're not conversing with one another, but just the fact that we're even able to put it together in the hour, and had a couple half-hour episodes, but each week, man, we show up. That's the most important thing, is we show up.
Absolutely, man. There's definitely been some some cliffhangers where it's been tough. Like wasn't sure we were going to get the episode in. There's also been there were some tough weeks where it seems like, it was kind of tough to get through it. And you're right, we had some 30-minute episodes there for a little bit, but yeah, I just think, with anything, you have to stick with it and continue to show up every single day, regardless of especially when you're starting new at something like this, like we are with this. A year, it's a great accomplishment, but we're still new at it, man. We still got a long ways to go.
Hmm. Yeah, I think as we continue to polish up and we get that experience under our belt, we'll see this for what it is, and I think that leads us right into our title, actually, longevity. And I know we talked a little bit off air, but for the people that weren't around for that conversation, what's longevity sound like to you, Dunamis?
Oh man, I think that it speaks. So it's sort of an accomplishment. It's like when you have a holiday, or there it's marking the passage of time. And longevity just means that we were able to stick with something for a period of time, and not quit, not give up, and that we're still here. There's other Cardano projects that are still here that haven't been. It's funny hearing all these quote unquote influencers, or people out there that are, that have come out and for the fourth or fifth time announced that they're leaving Cardano, the Cardano ecosystem and the Cardano community, as it were. And I think all that stuff is just so dumb. But we this is it's a great accomplishment. I don't want to make too big out of the fact that we've been around for a year doing this, just because there's Cardano projects that have been around longer, and we should definitely, give them their due. A couple of them that we talk about on this project or on this podcast in the past was Hosky and Fren. But you take a look at all the different meme tokens that are out there. A lot of them have been there longer than us, and longevity is just saying that they stuck around, that they didn't quit, is really the main thing. And the significance of it is difficult to say now, but I have no plans on quitting. So if this was like a season of Alone, I would say, I don't know what our competition plans, but we're not going anywhere.
Say our competition is ourselves, man. And I think the biggest thing that we have in common with a lot of those guys is, or the number one thing that we have in common with those guys is we all stuck around. So give ourselves a pat on the back, and everybody else too, for sure. And yeah, the passage of time, man. We talked off air a little bit about that, and I hadn't really looked at it like that, so it was a good take, and it actually sparked the interest of conversation within me to like to talk about that passage of time because again, I'm a big advocate of the whole like time not being really a factor more, and what I mean by that is more of the idea of man-made time. But if it's not man-made time, then what is that? And when you touched on that that hit that for me. That it answered that. So that was one of those epiphany eureka moments that I had in that instance of like passage of time is like just the passage of time. Like the 5 years isn't necessarily like 5 years of from 2025 to 2030, like literally, yeah. But 5 years is, of experience of like what you've seen and those synchronicities and all of that, those viewpoints, those vantage points, and you tie all of that because you're that 5 years versus somebody who what just I don't want to say didn't do anything at all, but really didn't take advantage of their opportunities. And that's where you get the some people wasted their time or feel like they wasted their time, and then some people feel like they utilized their time.
Yeah, I we had sort of touched a little bit on that off air as well. The it sort of coincides the idea of with regret. When you think
Mhm.
about what what we spend our time doing, there's periods of time in my life where I regret having not done the things that I should have done. You know what I'm saying? In the right time. It's like you hear oftentimes about investing. Somebody who starts investing when they're 16 years old and they get their first job. If
Mhm.
they just put $100 aside every month and do that for their entire life, I mean, they're going to be rich beyond all imagination, at least if the dollar holds up to any degree. That's a whole nother that's a whole nother problem. But that's the idea, is that if you're investing, that same person decides not to invest, but later decides to start investing at age 35. The difference between starting to invest at, let's say, 20 and starting to invest at 35
Right.
is just incredible. The amount of compound interest and the amount of money that you accumulate given additional time. It's those numbers are staggering. That should never dissuade I don't think that should dissuade somebody who's older from getting started. If anything, it should encourage people that are younger to be more serious about their life and get started with these things earlier on. But
Mhm.
it's all it's all really still just time, and in so many different ways is an illusion. Time is we can get really crazy with this one, but there's also so many things that seem like they're going to take a certain amount of time, and we make estimations around that, and we live our life based on, oh, I think it's going to take me 5 years or 10 years or 20 years to do whatever. And oftentimes those estimates are way off, either under or over, just because when you really focus on something and you put your mind to something, you can get things done incredibly fast.
Mhm.
And at the same time, if you don't pay attention and if you're just like, I'll get around to it, in 5 years, that can turn to 10 years, 20 years, easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It brings me to a thought of how much time you didn't have that was in your control. So think about as a child when you're born, when you were dependent on somebody else and you were on somebody else's time. So that could be as far as the education portion of it too. You're depending on somebody to help you develop and help you grow. So
Hmm.
even what you should be learning at a certain age of your ABCs, your math, your kind of getting into that school prep and where you're at down the line, like because you could be 20 something years old and have like quote unquote the kind of like thought process of a fifth grader. You know what I mean? And then you think about that on top of like you compound that onto being 21, but then having the mindset of like this. So then how many years it takes to break that? And then like you think about these, I think of our lives sometimes as like a pinball machine almost, and sometimes like you're kind of just being pulled one way or you're being grabbed. And I think about like those odd detours. I think about Japanese subway stations and how they build them off of the way that the fungi, the fungi route and how they build it off of that. And I think about our lives like that, because sometimes you just get pulled in a crazy direction and it just throws everything off, man. And some of it is, again, some of the things uh, you can change, and then other things just are beyond you.
Hmm.
So at what point, really do you straighten back up with that? And you think about healing and you think about trauma. We all have some kind of trauma, in some way. It doesn't matter what spectrum you are in this world. Entitled people have trauma. It's called entitlement. you know and same thing with poor people. There's the poor man's mentality as well, which I do believe that there is some correlation with the entitlement and poor man's mentality. But we can actually get to that at maybe at a later time here, but maybe not this episode. But just going back on to kind of just that education thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on so much, and covered a great spectrum of consciousness. Even again talking about the fungi and the the education. We come into this world, completely dependent upon our senses and our parents and our whoever it is that raises us. And some of us come into great, very comfortable, happy homes, and some of us come into very traumatic, abusive, sad, hungry situations. I can say that my childhood was fairly happy, you know, but I understand that everyone's circumstances are different, and I think that sometimes people have it easy early on. They get it sometimes a little tougher later in life. I don't know if life has a way of balancing those things out while we're here on this planet. I know that there's very varying amounts of discussion about if things are balanced out more in the afterlife. But beyond all of that, I would just say that we come into this world completely dependent and expecting others to show us how to live, what to do, what to believe. And we don't understand coming into this world that what we're made out of, hardware and software, third dimension, fifth dimension, that we're all programmable. We don't understand these things. We don't understand and see God for what he is and what he does. And so we can be very easily manipulated. and we are manipulated. We've been manipulated our entire lives. The evening news, school, our parents, our hurts, everything that's in the ego drives us to, in some way, try and we have this necessity, this need to belong, to be accepted, to be liked. We want people to like us. We all want to be famous. There's just all of these things that go into our egos, and we all. It's so crazy because we're all completely independent and different. We all have certain things that are important to us that we like, things that we focus on, and yet we're all the same. We're all one. We're all exactly the same person. We all get hurt by the same things. We all care about the same things, even if we say we don't or try not to. We're all human nature. We're all made up of that same thing, that same sinful thing. We're all infinitely good and infinitely evil at the same time. And, we're all capable of being fantastically civilized, and we could all be the homeless person drinking water from the gutter. There's it's in all of us, and we have to be able to see ourselves in every person. And I that message that Jesus gave about, when you give a cup of water to any person, you're giving water to me. It That strikes true in that same idea that we're all connected universally, and that same consciousness. We're all connected to God, to the Father, through our consciousness in another dimension. We look separate here in the third dimension, and so we think that we're all different people. We're all separate and apart, and we're not connected. And we hurt each other, and we play victim perpetrator, and it's it's not going to end, and the wars are not going to end, and none of this stuff is going to end until the new heaven and the new earth come. And it's in the book of Revelation. It's all there. It's in the Bible. Jesus talks about all this. And I'm just saying that, like, in American Christianity, I hate to say it, but American Christianity misses, like, 40% of it. They get a lot of it right, but they get a lot of it wrong too. And not maybe in the most fundamentally important ways, but you know, in some of the ways that really take our focus, especially this time of year around Christmas time.
Mm, yeah.
Christmas is not a Bible thing, you know. And you can fight me in the comments and go ahead. I would love for every American Christian out there that feels offended at the fact that I really don't like Christmas, you know, to um to fight me on it, because I really just I'm not anti-Christian. I'm not anti-Christmas. I just really it's not for me. I don't think that it's I don't know. Just not a fan.
No, you're good, man. I actually learned a couple stories about just like the meaning of Christmas and the whole Santa Claus thing, and kind of learn like the dark history of it. And it's all perspective at the end. And I think traditionally, the Christmas tree and the presents, and then when you, as time passes and said traditions aren't as what they were, doesn't mean that the holiday is more or less. And that was something growing up. I had to transition out of the presents, Christmas tree, the traditional sense. I had that. I would say that I had that advantage, as you will. Is it an advantage? Who's to say? Because again, I had to transition out of that because there was still a wall that I had, between my interpretation of what holidays meant.
Hmm.
But anyways, yeah. So just that passage of time, and I think what you were, at least what I was gathering from what you were saying, just to kind of go back to that, was people. Uh, are either going to hinder themselves or they're not going to hinder themselves when it comes to just being able to like navigate and really understand the experience and be in that moment to gain that experience of like from your, you know, time, age, and all of that, and how it correlates to each other. Um, and the mindset that comes with that too, like, you know, you were mentioning with, you know, you're talking about God and you're talking about Christianity. And yeah, the word is the word at the end of the day. And I take it from an alchemy standpoint of, you know, these words have meanings, and
Hmm.
whether you know the full meaning of it or not, just know the word has a meaning. The word has an effect. The word has impact. All words have impact. It's how you use it. It's the context of how you use these, you know, you put these words. But either way, it doesn't matter because still those words have literal meanings. So just because you put it in a certain context doesn't mean that the word changes.
Hmm.
It just means the impact of what you say changes 100%. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that shift in mindset for sure. And when I think about God and you think about the word and you think about how simple this was for Jesus. And I don't want to say that in a way where I'm saying that like Jesus had an easy life. He really didn't, but in a way he did, because Jesus' life was simple because of his mindset and how he wanted to move. Other people were not satisfied with that at all. They weren't satisfied with just that talk of, yeah, I'm the son of God, so what? Yeah, but I'm not harming you. Like I'm here to talk. I'm here to, you know, give you the word. And I think that like you got to be true, and he was true to that word. And that's the thing, I feel like people aren't true to that word. There's the projections of society, all of that, just the projections of what other people have. Either there were some there were either failures in that realm, and then it gets thrown onto you, and then you have a choice to either take that or say, I can understand like why you would feel that way, but it's not like that for me. You know, like it's, but thanks. You know, like you still have to be able to filter it through. It's like a water filter. I'm like, I'm not going to drink muddy water.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The projections, I think sometimes we act out of reflections, out of the hurts and traumas that have affected us from our past. And the more that we recognize and see that in other people, I think the more that we can understand and, have compassion and not treat other people in that same perpetuator victim cycle.
I agree with you. I do agree with you on that. And you also, yeah, you can get to see how you've been treated as well. And you see how, you know, you can respond in those situations of how I see everything as like you know, it's a karma loop, right? It's a karma loop. It's
Hmm.
so, you know, we always get esoteric, or at least I do.
Yeah.
Then I always do my best to bring it back around, y'all. But it's always just like what Dunamis said, it's the reflection of you and just treating others the way that you want to be treated. This is the stuff that they teach in elementary school that is very, very cliche, but it really means a lot when you really think about what who you are and your reflection and how that just is your reality and what you see. And man, all of that being said, to jump back into longevity here for, you know, for a second, when seeing these things now, recognizing all of these things now at 34, dude, I s- man, it's so I want to get Drew Aces on here because I really want to get like a part two on this. I want to get his take on longevity, and mainly from the experience standpoint. It's like because for me at 34, I'm like, man, why is the 30 like why is that the sweet spot? You know, my uncle had mentioned that to me as well. He said, you know, in your 30s, that's when you want to, you know, that's when you should have it. He said that's when you should have it figured out. You know, maybe a couple cars. Sorry, that's my heater in the back, guys,
Hmm.
because it's cold up on this mountain. Um, he said, well, you just want to have a couple cars, and you want to start building, getting your credit right here a little bit, and things just start to make sense. And I don't know if it was him saying that or if it just happened like that. But I'd like to give myself a little bit more credit because I'm around a bunch of smart people, and I like to think that I'm a sponge in that regard to just even how I handle my own emotions. When to just kind of take a step back and reflect on those things, and even how you respond to feeling a way. Like, guys, I was not kidding about that ashwagandha earlier. Thank God. Uh, yeah, I think between Mercury retrograde, the holiday schedule, and sleep schedule has been wild. Um, but anyways, yeah, a multitude of things. But even just in that and how I've communicated with people, it's either been minimal or it's been very light. And because I have been victim of a bad day for sure. So, you never want to do that type of stuff. And I think that, like, in the longevity process of just how how you're able to provide solutions, how quick you're able to provide a solution in a given moment. And the solution doesn't have to be you putting a battery in a remote. It could just be as simple as how you decide you're going to direct yourself because of said X, Y, and Z. If I'm not, at a 9 out of 10 to be able to connect right over here, I'm going to reconnect right over here, hit a reset, recalibrate, and then I'm going to go ahead and get back into my first gear to move in this direction. And again, that goes back to the subway train station of just all of the minimal things. It's like looking at our charts. So it's like looking at Cardano's charts right now, in which, by the way, the longevity of Cardano, um, looking at the Cardano foundation and this, recognizing the utility behind this and less as the currency portion of it. I feel like when
Oh
you
yeah.
have everything in abundance, you have you have the finances in abundance. That means you have everything in abundance. I feel like the money will come with that in whatever format you want to see that. If you want to make millions of dollars, I'm sure you can make millions of dollars in Cardano. You just have to invest your stuff and diverse your portfolio. I feel that anything is possible. But I think that, me personally, when I came in here, I looked at Cardano as more of the as a stock and just the markets, and you invest in certain things, but I didn't factor in the rugs. And just when you get into the community, just the human aspect of it. You know what I mean? That was a big factor. It's not like Google or Apple. They're not about to go down. But these projects start and they go. But I think over time you weave and filter out, and you get people like Fight Friend, Hosky, Clay. The list can continue. But I'm gonna land my plane here just because I know I've been all over the place with it. But I know we started with my question of just what you thought about that. And but yeah, ultimately, guys, it's on you. If you hinder yourself, to hinder yourself or to not. And again, not always on you, but you really do choose the direction ultimately.
Yeah, over long periods of time, man, it's it can become a lot of what you described there. I think has a lot to do with discipline. We had a whole episode on discipline, and that was uh, that was RC, I think, right, in the discipline episode,
Hmm. Please.
and that what what a lot of that has to do with is just you're doing what you have to do when you don't feel like it. So you're in that situation. You don't have the ashwagandha. You're maybe not even an 8 out of 10. Maybe you're like at a 4 out of 10. And the way that you get to longevity, the way that you get to the next day, the way that you get to the top 10% day is by getting through the bottom 10% day. You know, you can't let the bottom 10% days win.
Yeah,
And
that discipline too, man. Of even just being like, I'm not even gonna let myself drop at that 4, bro, and that's tough sometimes too. The discipline to be like, once you get to a certain threshold, is like, okay, we need to reach out and hit that lifeline button, and that's another important aspect of that thing too. I am a full believer of like, you really just you shouldn't do this alone. You really shouldn't do this
yeah,
alone, man. It really takes a village. It really takes a team. It takes a community of people to really like get this together, man, to really be able to make that impact. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's perfect. And this is exactly why we do this podcast this way, because it takes both of us. I have ADHD and I can't stay on track all the time. I ramble. We go on and talk about a lot of different stuff in the hour that we talk, but we always bring it back around. Sometimes you go off and get very deep down rabbit holes, and I bring it back around too. So it's I think that what we do together, it fits, it works out well for what it is that we do. And on I think that's the way it is for longevity on anything. We've talked a lot in general terms because for everybody that listens, there's going to be something different that is important to you. And the trick is getting to the 10,000 hours, I think. If you get to 10,000 hours on something, you can master it. But it's difficult sometimes getting to that point because you start doing something and inevitably you're not good at it and you get discouraged and you want to quit. And so I think that I can't say that I feel really good at what we're doing right now. But it's something that we've been consistent and we've worked on some different things. I think we've improved on some different things. And just like anything in life, man, you have to go through reps, a certain amount of time working at something, and you get really good at it.
Yeah.
And man, you mentioned the rugs too, and I just want to kind of go back to that again because I that was it was sort of the thing this last week or two, just for everybody to kind of come out and bash on Cardano again and say that they're leaving Cardano. And we don't always talk about Cardano on this podcast. We are a Cardano project, and I don't think that it's really all that necessary to beat your chest and have to say things all the time. But especially if you're leaving, like just effing leave. Nobody cares.
Yeah. And I think that like with longevity too, everyone has man, everyone has a door that not everybody can walk in. It's inevitable that people are just going to have to evolve. And I think that how that exit strategy looks, it's just not going to look the same for everyone. And I think having at least an underlying respect of transition, I think that's important. And I think that's a fair assessment for a lot of things. And we've, so Liddy, we're, we've shout out to Mr. E. He's our D rep. And, we've been very vocal, in some of the stances, lately. And I think transparency, I've said that from the very beginning, but I think that we've done a lot of good things as a community. I think that, like any community, we always have areas to improve on for sure. And, we're going to continue to grow. I think ultimately, I've met some of the dopest people in Cardano that are now in our music community. And just to see the support of people in that regard and even bringing in artists from that, like just a whole other community of people, man. So, you got to give them, you got to give credit where credit is due in all regards. I mean, and everybody's got something, right? Everybody's got something. So
Yeah. Uh,
it's,
it's it's like
yeah.
me and the salty Christmas stuff. You know what I'm saying? I probably pissed off half our audience at least with with that. But not only does everyone have something, but everyone brings something. Everyone everyone has something of value that they bring, and everyone also has problems. And man, the beauty of life is really in the differences. It really is in our diversity, our everything that makes us different and unique is what, because really when you boil things down, we are one. We are all the same. We are all, programmable in the same way. We're all manipulatable in the same way. But
Right.
yet there's so many things that make us different and unique, and those things are all beautiful and powerful. And
I think these things need to be said too, and I think that I'm the most comfortable when I'm able to speak this freely in this type of environment. And I had a wise person once tell me that people aren't connecting with you. There's a reason why they're not connecting with you, and that could be said out of pride or out of ego. But I do absolutely feel the due diligence of having this platform to even get to this, because this is one of those things where a lot of people will sit in their room and they'll wish that they had the equipment, or they'll wish that they had X, Y, and Z. And that used to be me wishing that I had this, or if I had this, I would be able to do this, not knowing that I had everything all along and I had all of these opportunities, but they were just written out in different ways, and it's like, don't you have to be able to separate the art from the business portion of it, but then you also have to ask yourself, is this just a passion? Is this a monetizing type of thing? Are we making millions of dollars? No. Is it a passion project? By the definition and in context, yes. Dunamis and I are not making millions of dollars off of this podcast. No. does that does that devalue the message? No, it doesn't. This is what longevity means, and I think that it'll just evolve as it goes. It's not, it may even just bounce off of us doing this in person, which you and I have talked about. And I know that
yeah,
that's definitely going to be something that's going to be more prevalent as we continue to have everything in abundance and we have access to be able to see each other more frequently. And, I'm going to have a family here at
absolutely.
some point in my life, but yeah, to kind of get back onto that. And I wanted to really stress on that, especially with this episode and longevity. I'm not quitting, when it comes to that. And I know that's the kind of emphasis that I put on my projects. Like, personally speaking, that the kind of sentiments that people feel about Cardano is the type of emphasis that I want to put on my personal projects and my personal businesses. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, and I say this respectfully, and I think that this can be said with hopefully everybody in this community that has their own businesses, that with or without somebody else, my business is going to flourish, nor does it depend on anybody else to do well for me to do great. Because for one, I am great. I've always been great, and I am prepared and I am protected when it comes to that. And I feel that is a strong testament to say, to kind of block those things out, because again, you will get attacked spiritually, and you got to put that wall up and you got to draw that line in the sand to just remember that you are great when it comes to this stuff. So with that being said, shout out to Cardano for giving us the platform and giving us the ability to be able to recognize our potential, to know that we had it in us all along, to have everything in abundance as it was given to us already.
Absolutely. Yeah. The the difficult part is getting started. If if someone was, wondering at least how it is that we pull off what we do technically, there's really a little bit that goes on behind the curtain, but not a lot. And You know, the anything that you find that you want to do in life should just be a jumping off point. And
Yeah.
the things that I've been getting into here recently, and we're going to talk it's so much more about this in the podcast going forward, but just to again touch on this, and this is the great thing about longevity too, is it the longer you go at something, the more you can develop a passion for it and the more you can learn about it, and that learning will just blossom into more and more learning. I've been looking and learning a lot of the native Texas trees in particular, and learning how to identify an oak tree, a live oak versus a bur oak versus a red oak versus a chinkapin oak versus you know, different kinds of mesquite trees, the ash juniper, which is the cedar tree, is very very common out here, and we have a lot of that out here. But
Mm.
the whole point that I'm making is like the more that I learn about this, I just here recently have started. My eyes have been opened to really being able to identify and see pecan trees, and now I see them everywhere. You know, every time I look around, I see that leaf, that sort of oval shaped leaf, and
Yeah.
they're all turning yellow now. And it's just, it's got to be, it's going to be something different for everybody, but it's that thing that you love, that thing that just makes your heart sing. That is your passion, and you dig in and you do the reps on that. And the more you do the reps on that, that turns into longevity. And then longevity over time, if you give longevity enough time in something that you're doing reps in, whether you love it or not, eventually you'll also find success. So,
It's cool to hear about you recognizing the the pecan trees and being able to jump into that cycle now with these trees. That's sick.
oh yeah. Yeah, there's actually what's kind of a cool story since you mentioned it again is that the we went today and we were kind of walking around by the missions, and there's basically some pecans that were on the ground, and these are all, I mean, it's a very trafficked area, very
Mhm,
picked over, I'm sure, by people that pick up at least the ones that fall on the ground. And
mhm.
we just so anyone who's listening, we didn't harm any trees, we didn't go and take anything, you know, or pick at anything, but there were some of these pecans that were on the ground, and sure enough, I'm going to see if we can get them to sprout, and if I can get, it'll be a great story, you know, from you know, right around just after Thanksgiving, to have trees from a historic area and potentially be able to grow them and have that story going forward. I think it'd be really cool. But yeah, man, it's really incredible to be able to be connected to the land wherever you live, and understand and see that native thing. But the trees are sort of something that I'm really super excited about. I know not everyone in our audience is going to be as excited about trees as I am, but
Yeah, and I think that and I wanna ask you this too, and I'm gonna try to ask this as not esoterically as possible and as general as possible. When we and just to go back with time and longevity and all of this, you gotta wait 5, 10 years to see, the trees and to see some of these plants that we've talked about take 30 years to really, jump out at you. And to tell somebody you gotta wait 25, 30 years and have them believe or at least them understand why it's worth it. Whereas now we live in such an instant gratification world where it's 5 seconds or less, and you've lost the interest of some people, like you had mentioned earlier, like you have ADD, and
yeah,
I would say a lot of my friends do, and I do to some degree, maybe, or maybe it's just kind of something adapt to be able to adapt. I
Mhm.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. What I've learned, but what I have learned is having friends with ADD is awesome because they have a completely different superpower, and you
Mm.
can like have five things. But then we could also like train ourselves to get them all done now. So it's great. But anyways, what do you say to that as far as when you look at something that's like guaranteed 25 years, guaranteed 30 years, and something that just needs to develop over time versus that instant gratification? Where's the balance with that?
Man, I am so glad that you're talking about this. And this is the perfect thing to talk about on this particular episode. And the entire problem with the world today is that instant gratification, it's convenience that's been sold to us ever since the 1950s and 1960s, where we, you know, really even going back to the Industrial Revolution. We've talked about this in other episodes, but people had a subsistence lifestyle where, if 80% or more of the people in the world at one point in time, not too long ago, their existence was to provide for their own food or for food for people around them, and that was it. That's what you did. And then all of a sudden you had industrialized agriculture, and people could move into the cities and get jobs that were business related jobs, or other things. And things started to, I think, in my opinion, the American Heart Association, a lot of the stuff, things just really started to go downhill. But
Mm,
you know i I feel like I'm starting to lose the thread a little bit, and this is my
uh,
ADHD. But I just, all of this stuff happens for a reason, man. So I feel like we're talking about the right things. I feel like the delayed gratification in particular is something that's super important, because you mentioned, again, we talk about pecan trees a few times in this, and I think that's a perfect illustration, because you plant a pecan tree and it takes 5 to 7 years before that pecan tree even starts producing nuts. And then you've got probably 15 to 19, 20 years even before it starts heavily producing.
mhm.
And then you have a tree that will produce nuts for you for hundreds of years. So, I mean, that's just a fact, people. Look it up. So,
Yeah,
that's something you can plant in the ground today. But you know what? You're not going to get anything from it for 5 to 7 years. And that's just a fact. That's just what it takes. And I'm cool with that. And I'm even cool with not having a lot of those nuts myself. I'm fine with my children and my grandchildren benefiting mostly from that. But that's just, you have to have, you cannot have that mindset in the full ego when you're just thinking about yourself, when all you're concerned about is you live and you die and there's nothing else after that. If you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in an afterlife, if you don't believe that you pass along your soul and your genetic material and messaging and your DNA to your children, that they're not a reflection of your own self, they're not carrying along your legacy, then yeah, why would you care, right?
right. Yeah.
But that's what we have to change as a species. We have to change our focus. We have to completely change our mindset to be delayed gratification. The whole thing about Bitcoin and money. Money used to be something that you could save. You could put it aside. You could become wealthy by saving money. With inflation, with what money has become, with what the government has turned money into, you'd be foolish just to put money in a bank account and let it inflate away. And what does that force you to do? It forces you to spend your money, which is not delayed gratification. That's, I have to spend it now. Otherwise, it's going to be worth less tomorrow.
Right. And
It's
then I have to
they've
go. Then I have to go work to make it again to do the same thing.
exactly. The entire system is designed that way. It's designed to push us in like a rabbit, or I want to say a hamster on a hamster
Hamster
wheel.
wheel. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's it's that forced. We're going to put you on that treadmill, and you know why do we do that? We do that for the dollars. We need more dollars. There's not enough money. And inflation is the burner under that because things just become more expensive. So I need more dollars. So I need to work harder. And it's just a perpetual problem until you realize you sit back and think about what you actually need dollars for. And I've done this as an exercise. You do call me the philosopher dunamis at the
I
beginning of
do.
each of these episodes. Yeah.
True.
So I've thought very long and deeply about what it is that I need American dollars for. And at the end of the day, I need the US dollars to pay taxes. And in my case, I have some debts and some child support payments. But once all of that stuff is squared away, and in as much as I can square those things away with dollars, there really is no need for dollars in my life if I can at least provide my own food, my own shelter, my own water. So you start thinking again about what it is that you need. And if you can take care of those things, then you don't need dollars. In the state of Texas, you still have property taxes. So, even owning land and owning it outright and owning a cabin on that land and owning chickens and sheep and cattle to feed yourself and your family, you're still going to have to come up with some amount of dollars to pay the government in this day and age. Hopefully that changes someday soon. But in that case, you know what? Sell a few eggs, pay your property taxes, and
Yeah.
and move on. But that's all I have to say on the matter is that it, I know we're getting close to the end of it, but this is my illuminating revelation here. Is just that if you want to get out, check out of the system, check out of the system. You really don't need dollars for anything. They're not. The United States dollar is designed to extract value from whoever holds it. And that's it. That's what it's designed for. So I don't want to hold it. Governments around the world have figured that out now and they're de-dollarizing. And if you're smart as an individual, you're probably de-dollarizing too.
Mm. And this isn't financial advice, of course.
Not financial advice.
Not of course. But you bring up a lot of good points here, and I'll do my best to sum everything up here. We're running low on the time, y'all. But hey, that's good. We've been having some good conversation this evening, and that's what longevity is all about. But to touch on a couple things, yeah, everything that looking at what we have in the grocery store, you can grow in your yard. You can create a controlled environment for very minimal. And again, it takes time to do those things. But again, the time that it takes you to go to the grocery store and to, let's say, hey, you have to build on those things. It's not an overnight sensation. It's not overnight oats. Very delicious, by the way. But let's say you get your lettuce for a little bit, and then you get your seeds. But while you're doing that, you're taking care of your lettuce because eventually you weave off of it. It's like somebody who's quitting smoking, for example. Some people can go cold turkey. Some people, have to take the nicotine pouch. Look at this as the nicotine pouch. And then so on and so forth. But again, the Industrial
Yeah.
Revolution, we think about mass production, we think about convenience, we think about inflation, the value of a dollar, so on and so forth. And just all of it. Oh my gosh. Other
And if
episodes.
if I can just tail end on that real quick and just mention too that you don't have to have 20 acres of land to go and do
Yes,
any of this
that's right.
stuff that, like, you can feed a family on, a quarter of an acre.
Acre.
You
Yes.
you can in your backyard have some what my mom used to call backyard pigeons, but they're chickens. You keep some chickens in your backyard and you eat the eggs. And if your HOA will allow you to do it, this is something you can do in a neighborhood, wherever you're at. So if your homeowners association does not allow you to do it, you might even be able to fight that depending on the laws in your state. So all there is just to say that, like, you can dream big and start small. It's that easy.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not impossible. And that's what this podcast has been all about. I know you know me, y'all. That's what this podcast has been all about. It's just been able to empower the people to just let you know that nothing is out of reach. The reason why things seem out of reach is because mentally you haven't reached it yet. And it's a kind of on you podcast. Like this is all on you, here to impact and really give literal terms to these words, and really bridge that gap with all of this. And that's our why, and that's why we won't stop with what we're doing. So again, I feel like the people that have tuned in weekly to us, whether it's the same people or whether a couple stragglers here and there, I know that it's getting there because we've got multiple facets of this. It's not just the podcast. We've got music, we've got community, we've got people, in governance positions, and we have each other. So big hug.
Amen. And let's do this again next week, Izzy.
Let's do it again next week.
Awesome. Hey, until then, never give up the fight.
Never give up the fight.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less. You check as I'm chess, what's happening next? Yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson. He got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take a redemption. Just kill no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions and the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak minds, they can stay soft. You can change lives, you create thoughts, never waste time. You got one shot, you got one life, better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5, no mean boss, just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me.